Before I start the video, as a quick reminder, check out my links down below to help support the channel. I am now in partnership with Baron of Dice. They have some awesome TCG accessories like playmats, deck boxes, and dice. And if you want to level up your setup, it is the perfect way to do so. And if you want to support the channel directly and get some sweet perks, consider joining the Patreon. If you want to get early access to videos or even some deck help, Patreon is where it's at. And so without further ado, let's get back into the video. Back when I first started playing Magic the Gathering, I was all about standard and modern. I went to a lot of different tournaments and a lot of local Friday night Magic games. I had a pretty big competitive mindset when it came to Magic the Gathering. However, about 4 or 5 years ago, I got into Commander because of some friends. I didn't really care about it too much back then because I thought, well, if they're not in standard or in modern, why would I play these cards? But then suddenly, after a couple of games, I think when I first started playing Commander, it was around Ikoria. I bought the Calamax Precon. I realized it wasn't just about winning in the most efficient way possible. It was sitting around the table laughing and telling stories and slinging some powerful spells. I'll be honest, the transition wasn't necessarily easy. I went to CDH right away because I thought, okay, what's the most optimal and competitive deck I could bring? But I did have to refrain my brain a little bit to enjoy the chaos instead of trying to control it. And that's what this video is about, chill commanders for competitive players, because many people may not want to leave their competitive side at hand. They just need to channel it maybe a little bit differently. This is speaking from experience. If you have a hard time channeling from competitive to a casual setting, hopefully this video will help you out. Competitive players entering Commander often get frustrated. The politics, table talk, and the wild card plays, it doesn't feel like a tight, precise match that we're used to. But here's the thing, Commander doesn't erase your competitive mindset. It essentially transforms it a little bit. You still get to flex your skill in Magic the Gathering, but instead of beating one opponent across the table, you're navigating the battlefield of 3 different opponents. Maybe get into some alliances or into some politics and a lot of unpredictable swings because again, you're playing against 3 different opponents. So it can be competitive, but more in a social, story-driven way. So I just wanted to briefly go over that before talking about some chill commanders that I wanted to talk about. Hopefully you kind of understand where I'm coming from. But let's first start off the list with Marneus Calgar. This is a pretty chill commander and also can be quite competitive. It kind of scales with the table and the power level. If you're a competitive player who loves the advantage and value engines, Marneus Calgar is your guy. He is a clean and efficient commander that does give you rewards for doing what you're already doing. You're creating tokens. In a way, he does scratch that itch of incremental advantage. Drawing cards from the command zone is probably one of the best things you could do in a commander game. And because he's making a token army, you could go into that big Timmy fashion of swinging in with a lot of soldiers. Of course, you can go a little bit more competitive. He has seen a lot of CDH play, and I dived into Marneus Calgar a lot more in another video that I'll post a link. So I didn't want to go over him too much, but again, he's building a board presence, drawing cards, and he can lead to some fun gameplay. But let's move along and talk about the next commander, or should I say commander pairing, because there are 2 commanders in one card with Goro-Goro and Satoru. This is such a sneaky commander for competitive minds. In a way, this kind of feels like you're piloting a standard Rakdos or Grixis mid-range deck. It builds the pressure on your opponents with their life totals, and it has some great tempo plans because you could go in a lot of different directions of ninjutsu, putting a lot of dragon tokens on the battlefield, and smashing face. But here's the exciting thing, and personally what I love about Magic the Gathering, is the fact that you're putting big giant dragons on the battlefield. You could swing in with them and go to town. This is a very strong commander pairing. Of course, this is from March of the Machine, and there's a lot of commander pairings that kind of put 2 commanders in one. It's very strong and it's pretty streamlined, but it is still pretty fun because you're winning with style and not just a fast line infinite combo. So transitioning from a newer commander to an older commander with Sidisi Brood Tyrant, we did get an upscale version with this with Taval the Balanced Scale, but I do believe Sidisi Brood Tyrant is still pretty fun. A lot of graveyard decks do appeal to a lot of competitive players because of the layer of complexity that it offers. Sidisi is a great choice here. Instead of going for a turbo win, Sidisi rewards you for milling, making zombies, and getting value from the graveyard overall. In a way, this kind of reminds me of Marneus Calgar in a way where you're making tokens on the battlefield, gaining that value, but in a little bit of a different way because you're going with a graveyard strategy. Sidisi itself is a great engine to kind of fill up your graveyard, play a lot of great reanimation spells, and go on from there. You still get to play the engines and synergies, but in a way that feels grindy and satisfying instead of a little bit of oppressive for casual settings. But if you are all about big creatures, especially sea creatures, I got the perfect commander for you, and that's Kenessos, Priest of Thassa. If you're a competitive player who loves big flashy plays, Kenessos is perfect. He's basically a fair cheating into play deck. You get to manipulate the top card of your library, ramp out huge sea monsters, and turn the game into a spectacle. There have been a lot of cool Leviathans that have come out, like that Starwinder from Edge of Eternities that this could be perfect with. Having a lot of your creatures that are huge, swinging for a huge amount of damage, and get a big payoff. It's pretty competitive in the aspect that you're maximizing your odds and building towards a win condition, but I believe it would still be a fun commander to play that'll make the table cheer instead of groan, unless you are playing like a Koma the Cosmos Serpent. But outside of that, sea monsters are a creature type that I wish could just bundle up all together just like Outlaws, but that's just me. But this wouldn't be a Jurassic Magic video if I didn't include one dinosaur, and that would be Indoraptor, the perfect hybrid. Of course, I had to include one because dinosaurs are just awesome, but I gotta say Indoraptor is explosive, splashy, and yeah, a little scary at times because you never know where the damage is going to be directed to because of the randomness. I personally have played an Indoraptor perfect hybrid deck, and it is a blast to play. It feels like a Western standoff, but the Indoraptor has all the tools in his arsenal to have the advantage over his opponents. This is also a commander that you feel like you're playing a puzzle with. You're sequencing your threats, maximizing your attacks, and trying to keep your table on their toes because you never really know where the damage is going to be directed towards. It feels pretty competitive, but with the vibe of Jurassic Park Chaos instead of a turn 3 win, and that's the type of balance you may want in a commander game. But I did want to talk about one more commander. This commander, I don't know why, I've been recently fascinated with Hydras, maybe because I've been reading a lot of Greek mythology recently, but Gargos, Vicious Washer, is a pretty fun and splashy mono green commander. It is perfect for competitive players who like to optimize mana, but still want to slam down big massive creatures. Gargos has a big reduced cost for your Hydras. He lets you curve out them in a big splashy way, while Gargos punishes spot removal with free fights. It's very strong, but it's not CDH degenerate level. It's enough to keep the game exciting without feeling overwhelming. This is one commander I definitely want to try out for myself. I've played against it many times, and it's honestly a blast to play against. Plus, to be fair, Hydras are just simply cool. So now with that said, I'm going to go over my closing thoughts. The lesson here is this: you don't have to turn your brain off when you play commander, even in casual pods. Bring your competitive instincts with you, but point them at the decks that let you flex your skill without shutting down the fun. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about winning, it's about making sure everyone at the table had a blast, and trust me, you'll get plenty of chances to show off how sharp your game sense really is. So what do you think? Which chill but spicy commander would you bring to a casual pod if you're a competitive player at heart? Drop it in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And with that out of the way, thank you for stopping by.